Hey, welcome to Rec2Tech This is Max Dennison, the Digital Inclusion Coordinator for the City of Pittsburgh. Today, my guest is Audie Chapman, engineer, Pittsburgh native. We're going to talk about tech. We're going to talk about his journey in the city, from going to a local high school like myself to becoming an engineer and just everything in between. Audie, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Audie Chapman, president of Northside Youth Athletic Association, also a quality engineer at Bristol Metals.
Word. So first of all, thank you for coming. Again, we don't want to make this too formal. We want to make sure that it's a conversation everybody enjoys, but also it's just good to talk to another African-American brother. It's in the tech space. It's a unique journey. Oftentimes, there's not a lot of faces that look like ours. We're constantly trying to, push the envelope and get more people involved in it. So my first question we'll get right into it. Tell, for the students that are watching, or everybody, the parents, the educators, tell us a little bit about where you're from, where'd you grow up, and I guess my first question is, did you always know you wanted to be in tech?
Okay. I grew up on the north side of Pittsburgh on Colby Street. It's right off of Mount Pleasant Street by Northview Heights. Grew up in a two-parent household till I got to be an adult. And then, my parents, they divorced. But growing up, it was pretty normal. I can't say that I always knew what I wanted to do, because that would be a lie. You had your, policemen, firemen, that's what, stuck out as a kid, oh, I want to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And not to interrupt you, but that's actually the second question. What did you think you were going to be?
I don't know, because architect, my mom always said she was in property management, and she knew that a lot of contractors and things like that, and she wanted me to design houses. So she would always say, oh, you're going to be an architect, you're going to be this, so I would always say, yeah, I want to be an architect, because she would say it, and usually that's what kind of that guided me, I guess, to where, okay, I ended up here. You know what I mean? So maybe she was saying something to put some seeds in my brain, because that's what stuck out to me the most, growing up. So.
Did you have any, like myself, like I wanted to play ball. Obviously, I found out I was 5'6". I wasn't going to be able to dunk or touch the backboard, so I had to switch it up.
Yeah.
Did you have any? Was there any athletics, or were there any, even not necessarily athletics, but besides the architect, was there any other areas that like triggered you early, or that you've seen and were interested in, or did you have any? We had one interesting a person come up and talk to us who saw she had uncles and brothers who were in engineering. Mm-hmm. Did you have anything similar like that, or did you think you were going to be an NFL player, any of that, or
no.
Did you know early you were going to be?
I mean, I was always into sports. My dad, he played sports real heavy, so he mm-hmm. passed that down to us. I mean, I would try to play. Baseball is my first love. Me mm-hmm. being 5'6", 5'7", also, I wasn't always the one to get picked or things like that. So I started wrestling in the 6th grade. And wrestling, you get to be your own weight class. You get to be your own individual. And that's what I began to excel at, because it was all on me. You know what I mean? I didn't have to get picked for I didn't have to play a position. I just had to do something to perfect my ability. And so I started 6th grade, and I wrestled in 8th grade. I won a city championship in 8th grade. Then I continued on to Perry High School, where I excelled also. And got more championships in wrestling at Perry High School. So it's like that sport gave me the work ethic to do bigger things. You know what I mean? So that was the catalyst, I would say. Like my core catalyst was sports.
Nice. And you're actually, because we've done 3 interviews. The 4th interview, and you're probably the most heavily affiliated with athletics. So I want to kind of pivot in that direction as well.
Okay.
I would say for the athletes that are watching, for the young people that are engaged in sports, what transitional skills from athletics, you were speaking to it just now, just naturally, but what other skill sets that do you feel like they can take from sports and apply to tech?
It's just the work ethic, like adversity. You know what I mean? When you come across adversity that you have to fight through, you know, if there's a no, or if there's a door shut in your face, or if there's a crisis happening upon you, that, you know, even sports, you fight through that adversity. You know what I mean? You learn to do that, and you develop it through sports. And that's how you parallel it, I guess, to your everyday life and in your professional setting.
Okay. So when did you make the decision to go into tech? When was that? When did you know, like, this is what I'm doing?
Well, I think tech chose me, because I was working in, you know, a supply chain factory early on. I went to the Air Force. I'm an Air Force reservist. That's probably why I got hired. You know, they seen at the time, you know, 9/11 happened and things like that. And they seen on my resume, oh, he's in the Air Force. You know what I mean? And that's how I got my foot in the door, I believe, you know. And in that manufacturing setting, they put me in the quality department. And the quality department, it's before everything goes out the door that the quality meets the customer's needs. So when I got into quality from there, it became a career, because everybody needs quality. Every company needs quality. And the way innovation is rising in Pittsburgh, those tech companies need a quality division. You know what I mean? Because those innovation spaces have customers that buy their products. So, and that's why I said it chose me, because I was already in the line, you know, and I made it a career.
Now, so I know you went into the Air Force, and then you transitioned, and you said the job chose you. While you were in high school, and maybe even as late as 7th, 8th grade, middle school, high school, early, I'm not sure if you have, if you chose to go to college, or if you just went straight to the Air Force, or if the Air Force even has these courses. Were there any classes or courses that you took during that experience that you feel like later on made you a better engineer?
It did. I took a drafting class, and you had somebody on, Tiffany Marie. Me and her was in the same drafting class at Perry. You know, it was called Visual Communications, where we would, you know, and then it taught me how to read blueprints. You know what I mean? We would have a T-square, draw out longhand blueprints and things like that. And that's what stuck mentally into me, like that it's going to be a much further skill to know this stuff, because geometric distance and tolerancing, that's like the true position of things, and that's what that class gave me.
Okay, so the drafting class was critical or very important to the journey. Was there any other classes that stick out, or was that kind of like the turning point?
That was it, and physics also.
Okay.
You know, that's the study of time and variables.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then after you took those courses, was it the light bulb kind of clicked, like, I'm going into tech? Or because it's not necessarily at this point tech, it's more STEM. So you're taking physics, you're taking draft, and this is science, this is STEM in general.
Right.
Did you still know for sure you were going in tech, or was it just kind of you're just accumulating skills?
I was just accumulating skills, and I would say later on, when things were presented to me, and I would say, oh, I know that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, when most people don't know it at an entry level, I could say, oh, I know that stuff. That's a skill I do have. You know what I mean? And sometimes that'll steer you to wherever you're going, you know?
So piggybacking off of that, like, I watch you, I follow your social media, I watch a lot of your messages, and obviously you kind of have a two-prong approach. You're a coach, mentor, and then you're an engineer.
Mhm.
And like I see your messages. Is there anything looking back now? This is a kind of a fresh question, but it came in my head as you answered the last question. Is there anything else that you've seen or may have come across, class-wise or decision-making wise, that you would have maybe done differently, or maybe taken another course or something like that that would have made you an even better engineer?
I think my foundation of mathematics, I got a little discouraged in high school because, oh, math is hard. And then you just like, oh, I forget this. You know what I mean? Instead of putting the proper attention where it needed to go, me, I should have took that elementary functions class probably in 12th grade, and it would have given me a better foundation moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And here, my 12th grade year, I didn't even take a math. I think I took chorus or something.
we just trying to get out of there.
My math was done. I was like, just whatever, so.
Yeah, no, we all did. A lot of us did.
Yeah.
We took those easy electives just to, it's like we're done, we're ready to graduate and move on. But,
right.
Knowing where we're at now, it's always hindsight is 2020, and we could have maybe taken another one of those extra courses. Even if you would have just took that one tough course and took 3 other easy electives, maybe would have took that one tough course. I got you. Okay, so you're in tech. Obviously, you're an African American male. We know the numbers. We know that the tech industry, it has, I've seen numbers as low as 3 to 7% minorities, women, African Americans, Asian, Latino, Latinx. Tell me some of the issues, if you've had any, that you faced that might be particular to an African American male, that if your son or your nephew or one of your players is about to go on the same journey or path that you're on, like, hey, prepare yourself for this, or if you come up against this, be ready for it.
I would say, being that the lack of diversity happens, and I think I attribute that to preparedness in our Pittsburgh public schooling. You know what I mean? A lot of those neighboring suburban schools have these tech-focused classes, that parents don't have to go, oh, I'm putting my kid in this. It's already in their curriculum. You know what I mean? Like, parents don't have to go and find it like we do Pittsburgh public school. Oh, I'm sending my kid to this school. It seems like all of the neighborhood suburban kids have it to where they're sometimes first in line to these jobs. You know what I mean? Oh, sorry.
Gotcha. So,
and from that, my advice would be like, always be on time. Be consistent of the things you do and follow through.
Gotcha. So preparedness, making sure you're on time,
and follow through. Execution. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Because that's big.
Gotcha. So once you decide,
sorry about that.
No problem. No problem. I understand. So going right along with that, Ace, when you got into tech, what was your did you have any big breaks? Was it just that you were in the Air Force? How did you know to go to apply to the company that you wanted to apply to? Like, how did you're back from the Air Force, you're fresh. What made you go into engineering, and how did you catch your first break?
Okay, when I got my first job out of the Air Force, it was called Environmental Safety Solutions, and they did packaging for the United States Postal Service. It was a government job through Northrop Grumman, and they were looking for people to go and be a field engineer, go to all these post offices to integrate their systems. And the reason why I said I got selected from the Air Force, that's how I feel like I got my break and the start in there. And from when that contract was over, I was able to put that in my resume. And then I ended up getting like bigger paying jobs and higher paying jobs because of that experience I had.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what on that first job again? Because at this point, are you 1,000% sure you want to be in tech, or are you still on the fence? Or are you still trying to
I was
figure it
still
out?
on the fence. I mean, it was my first job. I mainly just got a job to have money. Oh, I need money. I'm an
Right.
adult now. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it wasn't so much career focus as to what they were telling me what to do. I think it became a career after I got my next job. You know what I mean? Then when I started getting high pay, I would say to myself, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I got to do. And this is what I got to do to achieve this. Because my second job at Cameron Measurements, they paid for me to go to school. And that's how I obtained my engineering degree.
Nice, nice. So they
So
sent you back to school?
What's that?
Walk us through that. So they sent you back to school?
Yeah. Well, I went to Clarion University right after high school. And I was just so immature and I wasn't ready for it. You know what I mean? I just wasn't ready for it. I didn't have no focus. I just did college because it was, the thing to do,
Right.
but it took for me to be in the job to buckle down and see that, okay, the doors are starting to open up. You know what I mean? I'm got all these jobs and I got to pick, which jobs I wanted. You know what I mean? From my experience of what I did, from an entry level standpoint. And I was saying to myself, do I always want to be entry level, or do I want to exceed that entry level and be, and step up? So yeah, Cameron paid for me to go to school, and I had to stay with a company after I graduated for about a year. So that was like my contract.
So when that's happening, pardon me, when that's happening, about what age are you?
At this time, I'm like 23, 24. So okay. I'm pretty still young.
Yeah, you're young, but to me, you're young. But to the students out there who may be watching it, even though that in the scheme of things, it is very young. When you're 23, you may have some of that feeling of like a little bit of loss. I'm not sure what's happening. Everybody else is graduating.
Right.
People are going to law school. People are having kids. People are getting married. So it's never too late. It's kind of what I'm getting to. To kind of find your niche. And I would even add, like, all the way up to maybe even 25, it's okay to endeavor in different areas and spaces, looking for your niche or what it is that you want to do in tech. So you catch a break, your job pays for you to go back to become an engineer, finish up. You're a little more mature now. You probably got real bills at this point. You got a place, got a car. You take it serious. You crush it at school. Were there any classes or mentors in that process that kind of helped you? Because interesting enough with your story so far, and let me know, we can back up if I missed it. I haven't heard you say much about mentors. So are you figuring this stuff out on your own, or are you just bumping your head against the wall, or was there people talking to you?
No, to be honest, I didn't have no mentors. You know what I mean? I think I always gave off this presence that I always had it figured out. You know what I mean? So I didn't reach out to nobody or anything like that. But during that time, Calculus 3 got pretty hard for me. Like I took it all the way up to Calculus 3, which was my last math. And I outsourced and took it to it's Sylvan Learning Center or somebody like that. One of those homework, and I would go there 2 times a week. You know what I mean? And the guy, his name was Matt Sumter, I think his name was Matt Sumter. He was at Carnegie Mellon, and he was my tutor. And this was like 13 years ago. But I would see him twice a week, and I would pay him like $150 if I seen him twice a week. You know what I mean? And he taught me everything he knew. You know what I mean? Everything.
Wow. So nobody taught you that? Nobody told you to do that? You just figured it out?
I just did on my own, like where it got overwhelming. Because I remember, you know, I had the basics of, you know, derivatives and things like that of the entry level calculus, but then it got to the graphing part of calculus 3, and I got my test, and it looked like it was.
Hold on, you went on mute.
You know, so and that's when they called around and they said, oh, we got a guy that's calculus and everything like that. And I'm like, oh, I would like to meet him and see him. And it was, from there on, everything I learned, I'd always wanted to show younger students that about calculus and about math and things like that. I always wanted to, you know, show people, you know what I mean?
Right. Okay, so interesting, man. I like the fact that, you know, you're probably the first person to say that they didn't have a bunch of mentors, but it didn't slow you down. You looked for the information, you hunted down the right people to help you, and you made sure that, you know, whether you had to pay, because, you know, 150 a week at $600 a month, a lot of people even at that age are not willing to invest in themselves and invest in, because you're basically betting on yourself at that point. You're putting up, you know, a portion of your earnings and saying, you know, I want to be successful, so I'm gonna pay to be successful. So that's really cool and interesting, and I like that about your story. So spinning on to the next question. So obviously, again, you're in the tech space now. You're working in the tech space. You've been working in the tech space. You've seen a lot. Even I think sometimes it starts in the classroom. You don't see a lot of diversity, right? You're in a classroom. You're in Calc 3. You're in trigonometry. You know, there's not a lot of people that may look like you in those classes, whether you're at the community college, state, wherever. Unless you got the privilege of going to a HBCU, but you're in these spaces, and obviously there's a huge disparity in tech. If you were given a perfect world, how would you address it, and how would you get more young men in general, but African American, Latinx, or Latin brothers? How would you get them involved in tech?
Well, I would do a show and tell. I mean, I try to do a show and tell as much as possible, like from the things or the products that I worked on, to say, oh, this is going in space, this is going in the moon, this is going to the bottom of the ocean. You know what I mean? I believe it's like a show and tell first, and then from there, when you gain their interest, then, you know, they could work backwards and how they can achieve that. You know, I believe they have to see it first. You know, because if you got them, tell them, oh, you should take this math class, but they don't see the result of taking that math class. You know what I mean? Oh, it's another math class. But if you show them the possibilities of what can happen to that outcome, you know, the finish line, and then work backwards to where, okay, this is the math class I was talking to you about. This is where it can take you. You know what I mean? And that's how I approach young people. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Yeah, I want to take my whole group to they're having a space exposition down at the Science Center in the fall. So I want to take a group. I want to show them, you know, the space part of it, you know, and gain that interest. Then they can be like, oh man, I think I want to do that, you know.
Right, and you know, we all, those of us who follow you on social media, friends and family, we're familiar a little bit, but the audience in general may not know about, you know, the project that you worked on as far as going to space. So if you want to speak to that a little bit, for people watching, tell them what you did, how you were a part of it, and somebody, even if you know, my thing is programming, coding, software development. So even you going to space, or the product going to space, is a different lane for myself. Can you tell the audience a little bit about what you worked on?
Yeah, NASA had an Artemis program that they were conducting and funding, and they did the funding through Astro Robotic. Astro Robotic is a tech company located here in Pittsburgh, and they outsource the research and development part of it. So my company that I was working for at the time, Conturo Prototyping, they designed the shell of the part that's going. So it was like the outer shell. It had nothing to do with the function or anything like that. It was the actual shell of the ship that they designed and make sure that everything from it was by the specifications and fit for their specs for Astro Robotic. So it was kind of like an outsourced thing, but even though it was outsourced, we all worked on the same project, and it all came from Pittsburgh. You know, so
Gotcha. And on those type of projects, when you work on those, when you're looking at the team and diversity, how many other people on the team look like you?
It was just me. It was just me. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So at least you know, you besides the exposure. So no, first I want to say I appreciate you telling that story. Again, everybody was like rooting for you. We were excited about it when you posted about it. But back to the original question of how do we get more men involved? So we do the show and tell, you know, because a lot of guys, even if they're 5'6" or 5'5", do think they're still going to go to the NBA or do think they're going to go to the NFL. And, you know, it's like less than, I think, 1% of people are going to make it in any one of those spaces. How do you have that conversation when, you know, obviously you're an athletic coach, you're dealing with wrestlers, you're dealing with football players, and they believe in themselves. You don't want to discourage them. You know what I mean? You don't want them to think you're hating on them.
Right.
But you also want to be realistic with them about outcomes and success and how they can actually, you know, really have a sustainable career. How do you have that conversation with them?
Well, I have that conversation by telling them education is first. You know, I lead with that because I think, well, I don't think, I actually know that more doors will open, you know, once the education is there first. So I always lead with that. And if they want to go into whatever, if they put their best foot forward, whatever, that's fine. But always apply it to your education first. You know what I mean? So that's how I advice and conversation. You know, and it seems to be working. You know, or they say they're always going to talk about school again, and then you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But that's what I say. You know. So.
Nice. Okay, so you know, rounding up some of our questions, if a student right now is around you, or again, let's just say they're not a Northside native, they're in Homewood, they're in Wilkinsburg, they're on the Hill District, West Side, and they want to be in tech. What is your advice for them? How would you, being where you're at now, where you've come from, your journey, you're gonna build the perfect STEM student. To you got a startup or something like that, and you're gonna pass it down. You're building up your protege. What would be your advice for them?
I would say you know, start with the basics. Math and sciences are the core. You know, I would also say, you know, there's programs through NSBE. If you're a high school student, NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers, they have little workshops going on. Sometimes Pitt, you know, will have little workshops, engineering workshops going on. I would say like find out about what's going on there. Get yourselves in that line. And I think that would be a good basis to start. Like if they're really interested in things like that and want to take it to the next level, is to take on those workshops. You know, that's something else that I wish I would have done. And I'm still doing. Sometimes they have me come and speak at these workshops. You know,
Right.
I did one last term. You know, a STEM workshop for young students.
So just kind of get active, join local groups.
Yeah.
Okay. And as we round out, so I always ask everybody who we talk to during the conversation, it's supposed to be the good, the bad, and the ugly. What is, if you've had any, your worst experience being in the tech space, or, something, a story in which somebody could hear it and learn something from it? I don't know if you got a chance to tune into Tiff's. She had dealt with some toxic masculinity, I guess is the word that would go there. I've repeatedly heard from different educators or STEM professionals that they've been deterred by like a counselor, a student counselor, like you shouldn't go into tech, you should go into nursing, or you shouldn't go into tech, maybe try construction. Do you have any stories like that where it was a horrible experience and you were able to kind of push through that adversity thing?
I think that the most horrible experience, through my career so far, has been that I was a part of a small business. It was like a small business startup, and when you wear a lot of hats for the minimal pay that you're getting, that gets to be, not fun and draining. You know what I mean? Because you're doing a lot, you're going above and beyond, and the compensation is not what it needs to be. You know what I mean? That's the only horror story I can think. I was like, oh, I'm never doing this again.
So let's stay there, because even everybody's experience is going to be different. So it may not be sexism, it might not be racism, it may be compensation. So going back to that, you got somebody about to do the same thing. How do they have that conversation about compensation? Because obviously it's a new team, you want to be a part of it. Like, what would your advice be if you could go back to that situation and advise yourself even?
I would say, go like I do, but when I go to new jobs, I would go see what the market is. You go to Google and Glassdoor, see what the average pay is, see where you fit in. You know what I mean? See what the company's offering, find the middle ground. If you can't find the middle ground, then you got to say, no, I'm worth this. You know what I mean? And when you say I'm worth this, no ifs, ands, or buts, because you got to that certain plateau where it's like, take it or leave it. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I tell kids. Do you want to call the shots, or do you want to go to somebody to have them say yes or no to you? You know what I mean? You want to call the shots.
So basically, don't be afraid to say what you're worth.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. And then our final question, and then we can wrap up and kind of get your contact information or how people could reach you is, so you're an engineer, obviously to be good at your job, you've had to accumulate certain skills. You've had to work on yourself, pay for classes, continually invest in yourself. If somebody was really to be good at your job, if somebody was to work at your job, and they would be great, to be A1, to be Michael Jordan of what you do, what skill sets would that student need to be working on right now or possess? And even if you can add one or two that would make you better or that would make you stronger, what would you tell that kid to work on?
I would say, information systems. If you have a class, take a class, information systems, and math and sciences. You know what I mean? Because I work a lot with metals and things like that currently. And a lot of the metals come from my sciences, my chemistry classes that I took. You know what I mean? When other metals bond together or when they get pulled apart. So it's got to be math and science based. You took those two subjects together, the possibilities are endless. And that's what I try to, my advice to every kid I come across.
What about even not as like course wise? Obviously you're a good communicator. Are there any intangible skills like I don't know, conversation or communication or being able to work with diverse settings or anything like that?
I'm not sure I have the, I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm not sure about that as far as like you talk about like a personality, like
Right.
yeah,
Because
like
obviously, like maybe because it's natural for you,
right,
you can
right,
talk. You can talk to people. My experience in the tech space is that a lot of programmers are introverted and they don't
okay,
like to talk to people.
okay,
They
yeah,
don't like to
right,
communicate. So what I tell people is, if you want to become like a manager at a startup, or if you want to become like, if you want to push ahead of the crowd, if you know how to communicate with other people and
right,
code,
right.
because you can't just sit at your desk and code for
The
16 hours.
code, yeah, right, right,
But if
right,
you want to move up, you got to be able to command the room. And
right,
again, maybe some of that stuff comes from your athletic background, being able to lead, be a captain or whatever like
right,
that.
right, right.
Um, yeah,
And
just
that's that,
those.
yeah. And that's probably where sports comes in. You know what I mean? Like, because if you excel at sports, then you know the coach will look at you like, oh, you know, show this to everybody, so everybody could, you know, fall in line to your work ethic, and then not knowing that it's grooming you to be a leader. You know what I mean? So I guess that's already, you know, manifested inside you as a student. But I would say, you know, like you know, communications, probably courses, you know, where you do that public speaking, you know,
Gotcha.
things. I had to take a few of them, public speaking courses where you have to get up in front of the class and, you know, do a presentation, and
Yeah, do a speech. Yeah.
that will have to bring you out of your shell. You ain't got a choice. You know what I mean? So
Right. All right, man. Well, how can people find you? And I'm going to kind of wrap up with some, I've been taking notes on your story and some of the major points that I think, and if I miss one, let me know. But how could if a student wanted to learn more about how to become an engineer, how to be better, where could they find you? How could they contact you?
okay, my email is ace.chapman, CHAPM @yahoo.com. I'm always available. Shoot me a message or whatever. I'll get back to you in a day or so. My social media is at nerdboy Audie _Audie, NERDBOI _ Audie AUDIE, and that's on Instagram. So
We're making it cool to be nerds. So real quick, this is what I
yeah,
got from you.
yeah.
What I got from your story, utilizing sports as something to help you fight through adversity. Some of the courses that really changed your trajectory were your drafting course in physics. So to the students out there, you need to maybe take a drafting course or physics. Audie has repeatedly talked about having a strong foundation in mathematics, focusing on math and science. The course we should have both taken, elementary functions, in our
Yeah.
senior year. He's worked all the way up to a calculus 3. Some of the things that he believes will help with furthering and advancing and getting more young African American and Latinos into the tech space are exposure, show and tell, actually showing the students what we're working on, the cool things that we're putting together and producing as a way to kind of segue them into the tech space. Some of the skill sets, again, we're talking about math and science is a big focus. And also one thing he brought up as a member of a startup is or a member of anything, don't be afraid to ask what you're worth. Know the information, do your research. Also, if you're going into a space and you may face some obstacles, his advice is preparedness, being on time, being professional, being ready, as a way to deter anybody who may prejudge you based off of a look or a sound. Did I miss anything?
Oh, that's on point. That's on point.
Okay. Well, listen, man, we appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on a conversation. Again, this conversation, along with Audie's information, is going to be posted on the Parks and Recreation YouTube channel for students, educators, or anybody else that's interested. and engineering to go back and, go through these conversations and look for the information. And also, one last thing that I really respected about Audie's story is the fact that he was not afraid to invest in himself, paying X amount of dollars to get knowledge and information, something that doesn't always, all of us can't do it, but if you can do it, it can only improve your opportunities and chances. So I like the fact that he didn't necessarily have mentors, but he never let that stop him from becoming an engineer, getting into the tech and STEM spaces, and also continuing to invest in himself. That's all I got. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Again, this will be posted, and we look forward to our next tech conversation. You guys have a good day. Audie, do me a favor, just hold on for a few seconds after we hang up, or after we cut the call off. And thanks again, man, for showing up.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.